Some may call it feast week, but really it's a Monday after a wild week and weekend in college basketball. And you know that there's more to come. Time to get into all of it today, right here on Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello, friends. It is Monday, November 25th, 2024. Happy Thanksgiving week to all that celebrate. And no matter where you live or where you will be this week, giving thanks for what we have and where we are ever so grateful and so very thankful for all of you for always coming back and listening and watching to all of us here at Locked On Women's Basketball. I am Missy Heidrick, national correspondent and analyst at The Next, and welcome. So happy to have you here. Your favorite podcast now also has a newsletter introducing the Locked On NBA Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com and start your day with the all new free Locked On NBA newsletter. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Well, you can follow me at Missy Heidrick on X, formerly known as Twitter, wherever you can do it. I want you to also come back and help us and follow this podcast at LockedOnWBB. And then come see all of us at The Next, www.thenexthoops.com, for we have all of your women's basketball coverage covered. Everything from the college game to professional, international, you name it, we've got it. Come and see us there. It is absolutely nonstop. Well, we are in, I think, a 10-day stretch of college basketball where we see teams from all over the country flying off to special destinations. They're going to tip their toes in the sand, but then they are also going to test themselves against some quality top competition. For some, their Thanksgiving holiday tournament hasn't even started, but they are already feeling the pinch. Today, we're going to fly around ourselves, check in on some of the hot topics around the game, what lies ahead, with some more games to watch as well. There have been records that have been set, coaches that have left, and oh, by the way, massive games that have things shifting right underneath our feet. It is a Monday musings, and all you need to know to help kick off your Thanksgiving holiday week. All right. Well, we have to start first and foremost with records being broken. That is absolutely the biggest piece for me. And congratulations and so much more to Geno Auriemma for breaking the all-time wins record. Now, keep in mind, this man is 70 years old, turned 70 this past March. This is his 40th season in stores at UConn. And now his coaching career is absolutely defined by unparalleled success that no one has been able and probably will match for some time to come. 11 national titles, 23 Final Four bursts, including 15 in the last 16 seasons, 6 undefeated seasons, and separate win streaks of 98 and 111 games over the course of those 40-ish seasons. This past Wednesday, he was applauded and showered with so much congratulations by former players and former coaches and all the people that have impacted that program over the past 40 years as he becomes the all-time win leader in men's or women's college basketball, surpassing the legendary Stanford head coach Tara VanDerveer, who retired this past April. He now has 1,217 wins, the most in NCAA history, men's or women's, for any division. So congratulations to Coach Auriemma, a record that we didn't necessarily think would be broken that much over the course of the last 2 seasons, but Tara VanDerveer breaks it a year ago, and then Geno Auriemma breaks it this season. But one thing that I thought was incredibly interesting as we celebrate this momentous occasion, and absolutely should be, number one, Chris Daly, who has been the associate head coach at UConn with him through this entire time. And so all of those wins, 1,217, are also on her. And she was also stepping in at head coaching duties on a couple of occasions when Coach Auriemma was unable to do that for his personal reasons. So that is quite the pair, quite the duo. Not only have they been able to set a standard for success, but I think it's also been in recruiting to be able to get the right players at the right time. Maybe some weren't necessarily the number one player in high school, or you look at rankings and they may not always be the number one recruiting class in the terms of rankings, but it's about what happens when those players get to campus. And I think that's where you see that utmost success. I've had the pleasure of being in stores, called a couple games there, seen UConn and NCAA tournament experience or NCAA tournament action in person. And they're always dialed in. They're always ready to go. And they've created a fantastic environment for women's basketball, one that continues and will always set the standard. But one thing that I thought was very interesting is you look at the numbers and you think about what has gone on in the world of college basketball. We think about some of the biggest names, Mike Krzyzewski, John Wooden, Bobby Knight, all of those on the men's side of the game. But some of the biggest names have been in the women's side when we think about most wins by a head coach. And this is now how that list looks. Geno Auriemma, 1,217. Right behind him, Tara VanDerveer, the former record holder at 1,216. Next is Mike Krzyzewski, the coach at Duke. Spent time at Army and then at Duke. He was at 1,202. That was the record that Tara VanDerveer broke. Pat Summitt, the late great Pat Summitt at Tennessee, she was next, just under 1,100 wins. Next, see Vivian Stringer, 1,055 wins, retired coach from Iowa and Rutgers. Sylvia Hatchell, for her time that she spent the majority of that at North Carolina, 1,023 wins. And then Jim Boeheim, 1,015 wins. So of the top 8 coaches in men's and women's college basketball all time, 6 of them come from the women's game and 2 from the men. If you never thought that the game was elevated and that it was in good hands, well, let me just tell you, there have been a string of coaches. Will these numbers be matched? It's hard to tell because the landscape is changing. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you have to know there are some out there. They're chasing records, they're chasing numbers, but I don't know if anybody is going to be able to catch Geno Auriemma. All right, folks, we have had shakeup. It is 12:10 p.m. on Monday the 25th here where I am in Kansas City. That means this week's AP poll has just dropped within the last hour, and we have had movement. Well, that is because there was major games and big-time action happening. If you listened and watched a week ago, Alex Simon from SF Gate, the sports editor there, also an AP voter, was on this podcast with me. And we said, and he made mention many times, keep your eyes on the West Coast this weekend. That's where the action was going to be. Well, it started on Saturday, and there was Notre Dame at USC. I think from the get-go and from the jump, Notre Dame jumped on USC. There's a couple things I'll point out here. They get a 13-point win on the road, a fantastic women's basketball game, and I think a complete game played by Notre Dame. Both of these teams turned it over 20-plus times, 20 for Notre Dame, 21 for USC. The difference, 22 points scored by the Irish off those turnovers, just 15 for USC. Notre Dame able to win the battle of the glass. They had 41-38, even though there were 12 offensive rebounds by USC. But this was a defensive juggernaut by Notre Dame. The pressure and their ability to stick to the scout and to be able to fluster and manage Juju Watkins to the best of their ability is exactly what they were able to do. She goes 10 of 25 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. She's got 24 points and 6 rebounds. Now, she drew 11 fouls. She got herself to the free throw line 6 times where she goes 4 for 6. But it's the 10 of 25. It's the maybe lack of efficiency there. That's to the credit of the defensive game plan of Notre Dame that Niele Ivey and her coaches put in, and they stuck to it. Also, Kiki Iriafen, the other kind of two-headed monster for this inside-outside game for USC. She goes 5 of 15, having to manage and be able to deal with the defensive pressure, long athletic guards out front, and really a Notre Dame team that put their foot on the gas and did not take it off. Not a stellar performance, but one in which you have to think about how the Irish did it. And it is the backcourt, I think the most dynamic one in the country. They are proving themselves on the biggest stage. 24 points, 9 of 21 from the field for Hannah Hidalgo. She's got 8 assists, 5 steals. And then Olivia Miles, back from that injury and making it one of the best 1-2 punches in the backcourt. She's got 20 points. She goes 7 of 12. Kate Koval, the 6'5" freshman, gives them almost 32 minutes in that game, 7 rebounds. She's got 8 points. They needed a big size presence inside. She was able to do that. Congratulations to Notre Dame. They move up in this week's poll to number 3 because the shakeup, ladies and gentlemen, was then at Pauley Pavilion, and a huge, huge win for UCLA. They beat South Carolina, who had run off, as we said, multiple games. It was an undefeated season a year ago. They were undefeated going into this game, but they are no longer. The Gamecocks now are 5-1, and UCLA is at 5-0, and they move themselves into number 1 team in the land. A 77-62 win at home. They jumped on them early, and it was, again, defensive pressure. Dawn Staley called it a buzzsaw. I think that is a great analogy. Just 22 points by South Carolina in that first half. But this was a UCLA squad themselves. They were disciplined. I thought they were incredibly active, and they generated themselves simple possessions on offense. Sometimes it was creating offense with their defense out in transition. Other times it was just in the half court. Lauren Betts, 37 minutes, almost an Ironwoman, 14 rebounds, 11 points. She's just 5 of 8 from the field, but an incredibly effective passer. She draws a lot of attention. 2 to 3 Gamecocks on her down on the low block. She finds open players, finds open shooters. They're led, and it was a balanced stat sheet. London Joe's 5 of 5 off the bench from 3-point range. She has 15 points. It was 11 points for Kiki Rice, 11 points for Betts. There was just 2 players for South Carolina in double figures, and that was Tessa Johnson off the bench. She had 14. Tahina Paopao, 29 minutes, 7 of 13 from the field. She has 18 points. But I was just so impressed with how hard this UCLA squad played. And when they themselves put their foot on the gas, they did not let up. A huge win, 34 points off their bench. 77-62 moves UCLA into number 1 in the nation. South Carolina falls to number 4. All right, when we come back, we got to talk about a couple big coaching announcements that have dropped in the past 2 weeks, how they fit maybe into the bigger picture of college athletics and into women's basketball.
Locked on Women's Basketball is brought to you by Skims for Men. So, look, Skims has been around for a long time. We've had it for women. Now Skims is making underwear for men as well. Whatever size you're looking for, whether it's the cotton boxer brief, the stretch 5-inch boxer brief, there's even cotton 3-inch, stretch even Skims cotton brief, period. Whatever you need in order to feel comfortable throughout your day, Skims has underwear for men that allow you to get it. Go ahead and shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for a perfect gift for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com.
Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick, and welcome back. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. We so appreciate you. And in this week of thanks, we are grateful to our listeners and to those that watch, because you are what help us make it happen. And we are so happy to be able to bring you all the news and information to keep you up to date on women's basketball across the country. Well, one of the things I wanted to touch on today as we kind of bounce all over the country in this holiday week, and we think about what are the big stories in women's basketball, ones that have been talked about a week ago. We've had 2 big coaching changes within the last 2 weeks, and that does not happen much in the college game. Now, we've seen over the past couple of years when maybe a program doesn't get off to a great start, there might be a head coaching change, but that doesn't happen as much in the women's game. For those of you that live and breathe by college football, that is going to be happening here real shortly. We've already seen that hammer drop. But these are not coaching changes brought on by administrations. These are coaching changes brought on by choice. And A week ago, I talked in my column, the weekly fast break that you can find at the Next, that it was really sometimes the season is about opportunity, what presents itself. Coaches talk about that. And sometimes those chances for opportunity might come at inopportune times for others. I think that's what has happened here. However, you cannot deny that these are good decisions made by franchises within the WNBA. The first one was a change in the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Dream has hired Carl Zemesco, who has been the longtime coach at Florida Gulf Coast. I'll give you a couple numbers. Coach Zemesco has really been the only coach in that program. He's built it into a perennial mid-major power in Fort Myers. In his 23 seasons, is the first and only head coach of the program. He compiled a record of 611 and 112, including 10 NCAA tournament appearances. Only Florida Gulf Coast and UConn have won 25 or more games in each of the last 14 seasons at the Division I level. Every time there's been a coaching vacancy in the college game, even in the WNBA, his name has come up. Well, Atlanta was able to pull the lever and get him to make that change. Part of the reason is his high-flying offense where it's a three-point threat. And that is very much something I think that is it's a big draw for WNBA franchises and people in those front offices. They are looking to be able to see what teams who have had success in the W have done, and that can be high-flying, fast-paced offense. With that said, that change then hands over the reins to Chelsea Lyles. She has served as a top assistant at Florida Gulf Coast. She takes over that program about a week plus ago, and now is the head coach there in Fort Myers. Best of luck to him, but it was definitely one that I think surprised a lot of people, but also now a second surprise, and that is Lynn Roberts leaving Utah and going to take over the LA Sparks franchise as their head coach. Again, a coach who has done their homework, looked at the analytics, looked at the numbers, and understands that it's got to be an inside-outside presence and a three-point shooting numbers that can back it up. That's what LA is looking for. They've got young talent in LA just as Atlanta does. How do you build around that? I think Lynn Roberts is a fantastic choice. Now, a lot of questions coming up within this process, as we know that coaches across the country are having to deal and look at the landscape. This is no longer just a simple process of going out and recruiting high school kids or junior college kids, bringing them into your program. You have to manage the transfer portal, unlike anything else that has been. You could have kids that could leave you mid-season and then end up in the portal. You could bring a kid in via the portal mid-season and then have them sit out and then have them practice. There's a host of different things. I also think NIL and what has happened in what is coming down the pipe for college athletics and changes from scholarship numbers to roster moves, it kind of leaves this overarching question. If a coach is knowing that they're going to deal with all of these hurdles and all of these things within college sports, why doesn't it just make sense to move to the professional ranks? Isn't it a simpler process? I'm already dealing with people that are being paid. They're already on a quote unquote payroll. Do I just want to deal with the payroll that already exists within a professional franchise? I don't think it's a question that we can just throw aside. I think it's one that's reality now. Will this continue to happen? Well, we also know there's not that many franchises within WNBA. They're going to be looking for head coaches. That turnover will happen. We could see this become more. I give credit to those WNBA franchises and those front offices for going ahead, for taking the leap when it comes to higher salaries, knowing that you'd have to match it dollar for dollar to make it worthwhile for someone like Carl Zemesco or for Lynn Roberts to leave Utah. You got to make it worth their while. You got to make it seem as though this is going to be the right decision. Opportunity presents itself when it does. These two coaches have jumped. Gavin Peterson, who's now the new head coach at Utah, he steps into that role. 10 years at Utah, the last 5 as the associate head coach. Both of those programs in great hands. It's just so strange to see it happen in the women's game mid-season like this, but we know that it is a reality. The other part of that, and I would bring this up because I think it's something to keep your eye on as we think about the landscape of not only college athletics, but college women's basketball. Things are going to change. We're going away from scholarships. They're going to go into a roster number. Then it truly becomes sort of like a salary cap and a payroll. But I thought it was really interesting this week that UCF out of the Big 12, one of the first Power 4 programs and institutions to publicly announce that their NIL collectives, which was a separate arm, a separate fundraising scenario from the athletic department, from the university, that was being used, that collective money being used for name, image, and likeness, that is now going to be brought into the fold of the athletic department and what they do. So that is a big shift, that they will take that collective and they will assume direct leadership of it to enhance leadership of that revenue, to enhance NIL deals. And that change for them at UCF is set to take place July 1, 2025, pending the decision of the House settlement that is due to take place this coming spring. What those numbers look like, we still do not know. For UCF, they see this announcement coming forward being completely transparent with all of the people associated with their department. Hats off to them. That the UCF Athletic Strategic Competitiveness Team will be the program set to be in charge of revenue distribution, as well as scholarships, roster management, and recruiting. So they're putting it all under one roof, which makes a lot of sense. Now, I think there's a lot of athletic departments and institutions that are doing these same things. They just haven't necessarily been as public about it as UCF. So for every fan out there, if you've got questions, I would ask your local athletic department representatives for your teams and your schools, because they'll be able to answer that. And a lot of this is the type of model that we will see going forward, because it no longer is just going to be about NIL deals and how student athletes get money for doing this for a car dealership or anything like that that's associated with the institution. This is going to be different. And that money is ultimately, we're living in a world of pay for play, where student athletes across the country are going to be receiving money. They no longer are going to truly be amateurs. It looks different, and it's something we've got to continue to keep our eye on, and we got to get a grasp on. But hats off to UCF. They've been transparent. They've talked about what they're doing, and they are bringing it all in-house. All right, in a moment, a quick trip around to see which games you're going to want to keep your eye on this week. Some are fun in the sun. They might be pulling slots in Las Vegas. They might be in Palm Springs. A little bit of everything, because it is Thanksgiving week, and it is that holiday time. Well, a message from our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You hear me talk about it all the time. I'm from Kansas City. The Chiefs are the team to beat right now. They did it again in overtime yesterday. You could track all of that in-game with your FanDuel app. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And a message from our friends at Game Time, the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Filter only incredible deals on great seats with Game Time picks. You see the view of your seat on your phone before you can buy. Your all-in pricing shows your total cost up front, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps on your phone. Game Time also has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks shows you only the best value on tickets, whether it's the NFL as the playoffs are just around the corner, the NBA as the season hits up. Game Time is where you want to be. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code spell locked on LOCKED NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick, and welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball. Again, it is Thanksgiving week. We are so thankful that you are here with us, watching and listening, not only just today, but every day, because it is a pleasure for us to bring all of the latest news and information to you about women's basketball, not only here in the country, but all across the world. Well, Thanksgiving week is also a week of fantastic destinations for teams all across the country where they get a little bit of sun, they get a little bit of fun. There's going to be a couple assistant coaches and a manager, possibly a trainer, some support staff. They are going to have some sunburn because they spent too much time by the pool during the off time while the players were maybe resting or doing film work, but that's okay. You've managed the sunburn and you deal with it because you are in a fantastic destination. But what I want to give you is a heads up and a little bit of a preview of some of the games that you're going to want to see over the course of the next few days. Because if there's one thing I know about the holiday break is that sometimes we just not only got to take a break from family, you got to take a break from all the other stuff that's going on in your house. Maybe you got to take a break from work because someone sent you home for the long weekend with a project. And just go ahead, rev up the television, check your apps, check live game streams so that you can find out what's going on in the world of women's college basketball. Well, today, Monday the 25th, all the action and the fun starts in Vegas, and that is where there's going to be 2 great games and 4 really good teams. This is the Ball Dogs Classic held in Henderson, Nevada. Now, the first game is a matchup between 2 top 15 ranked teams, number 13 Duke and number 9 Kansas State. That takes place today. The second game out there is DePaul versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma comes in at number 8. Now, the winners of those 2 games will play each other, and the losers of those 2 games will play each other on Wednesday, the 27th. That is the Ball Dogs Classic out in Las Vegas. So if you're feeling lucky, pull a couple slots, put a couple dollars down on the craps table, and then make sure you catch those games because it is Duke versus Kansas State. A huge test. I think the biggest test so far, no doubt, for Kansas State at number 9. They've played all of their games at home. They had a 5-game homestand. They played everything at home in the first 5 games. Everyone thought the Creighton game at the time, the Blue Jays were ranked in the top 25, that would be a big challenge. They were able to just put their foot on the gas and never let up against Creighton. But this right here against this Duke team, I'll be so interested to see what Carol Lawson does and how they want to manage the pace. They want to play fast. And if it was up to me, you'd think they were going to want to get out and run, apply that full court pressure for 40 minutes, create the chaos, and force Ioka Lee to have to be out in transition. She hasn't played more than about 20-plus minutes a game. This will be a big test and another one on Wednesday for her as well. But that first one is Duke versus Kansas State. Number 20, NC State, they are down in the Bahamas. They're going to take on Southern today. That is going to be a matchup for them on the 25th. And then the Battle for Atlantis championship game is going to be Indiana against number 16, North Carolina. Welcome to the Bahamas. Welcome to Battle for Atlantis. And that is going to be a big one. Indiana puts themselves into that championship game down there in Battle for Atlantis after they were able to knock off the Baylor Bears 73-65. And that has dropped Baylor out of the top 25. All right, if you are in the Florida region and you want to catch a couple games in the Emerald Coast Classic Championship, there's a multiple brackets. Alabama and Clemson are favored to get there. The Crimson Tide now sit at number 23 in the AP poll this week. They have been playing great basketball, and they are in Florida. Also, you've got go west, go way west to the other side of the country and find yourself in the North Shore Showcase out in Hawaii. That is going to be South Dakota State, one of the top mid-major programs in the nation. They are going to play the Oregon Ducks, who are now in at number 21 in the AP poll. That is tomorrow, Tuesday, the November 26th. Then we get into Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, and you're going to have the Baja Mar Hoops Pink Flamingo Championship title game. More than likely, that is going to be NC State and LSU that are going to be favored to advance into that one. That would be a great matchup. LSU in at number 7 this week in the AP, and as we said, North Carolina sitting there at number 20. They've got themselves at 3-2, still in the top 25. Voters like them. We'll see how they finish after this week down in a little bit of fun and sun in the Bahamas. As we said, you'll also have the championship game of the Ball Dogs Classic out in Las Vegas. That could be a matchup of Duke, the winner of Duke and Kansas State versus DePaul and Oklahoma today. Those winners will play. That championship game is going to be on Wednesday. Also one to keep your eye on at the Music City Classic in Nashville. Number 14, Kentucky is going to take on number 19, Illinois. Both of these programs on the outside of the NCAA tournament a year ago looking in. It's been an interesting transformation at Kentucky. Kenny Brooks leaving Virginia Tech and going to take over a blue blood type program of the Kentucky Wildcats. They're back in the top 15 of the AP poll. They're going to be tested by Illinois on Wednesday in that Music City Classic. And then on Thursday, you get yourself down to Fort Myers, Florida. That's when it's going to get interesting. So when you've had just too much turkey, and again, you need a break from family or friends or both, find yourself an opportunity to get to Fox Sports, and you can watch this game, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, South Carolina and Iowa State. Number 4, South Carolina Gamecocks, and Iowa State in at number 15. The Cyclones drop out of the top 10 in the national poll. They lost to you and I last week. A buzzer beater over Drake gets them back in that number. They are in the top 15, but finding some confidence. It could be a great matchup. I would be very interested to see what South Carolina's game plan is going to be against Audie Crooks. But again, how does Iowa State manage the athleticism and the speed and quickness of South Carolina? A great matchup, a lot of eyeballs, and a great thing to do midday on Thursday, the 28th. On Friday, the 29th, you circle this one because if you are in the Cayman Islands, congratulations. Sounds like a fantastic place to be during Thanksgiving week. But if you can't, then you want to keep your eye on number 3, Notre Dame, and number 17, TCU. That is on Friday, November 29th. You've got Notre Dame that is up to number 3, TCU rising as well in the polls up to number 17. A great matchup of some very experienced guards for both of these teams. And then an inside battle. Sedona Prince for TCU. How does the freshman and Kate Koval, the 6'5" freshman for Notre Dame, how does she manage Prince? They're going to want to pull her out in the perimeter. They're not going to let her camp inside to block shots. That is a very intriguing matchup for me. And then also one to keep your eye on, number 22, Iowa against BYU in the Cancun Challenge. So if you get to Mexico, you're going to have Hawkeyes and Cougars playing on Friday the 29th. Just a few games, ladies and gentlemen, to keep your eye on. So many more out there. But I really like the fact that these coaches they're embracing the idea. Take your kids, take your team, take your support staff, go see the sun, go someplace different, have fun, but challenge yourself with competition. And that's exactly what we're going to see during this week. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I really do appreciate it. You can find me at Missy Heidrick when you follow on Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Twitter. But also then, please follow all of my amazing colleagues by following this podcast at Locked On WBB, and then go see us at The Next, www.thenexthoops.com, because we have all of the coverage that you need in the world of women's college basketball. Thank you again for being here with us. Remember, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On NBA Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free today, LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with all new free Locked On NBA newsletter. Have a fantastic week, everybody. If you got the week off, enjoy it. If you've got a couple days of work or school, put your head down and get it done, because the Thanksgiving break is upon us. And not only, I hope you have a wonderful time with family and friends and whoever you spend it with, but maybe you'll find some great shopping deals as well. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon right here on Locked On Women's Basketball.